Cough, cough, cough.
Hey, what are you up to?
Hi, I've caught a cold recently, and I've been taking antibiotics to treat it.
Wow! Hang in there and get better. But colds are often caused by viruses, right? Do antibiotics work on viruses?
Honestly, I'm not sure. What's the difference between bacteria and viruses in the first place?
Well, let's learn about it together.
Yeah, let's go on a learning journey.
Here's the overall structure of our lesson. Let's all learn together.
Share your thoughts in the comments too.
All right, let's start learning right away. First, bacteria and viruses are totally different in size.
They're both small though.
From a human perspective, it may seem so, but surprisingly, the sizes are completely different. Take a look at this.
Is that a human hair?
Yes, the thickness of hair is 100 micrometers.
Oh,
Let's magnify it even more from here.
I can see something.
These are the cells that make up humans. The size of a human cell is from 10 to 20 micrometers.
That's about 1/10 the thickness of a hair, right?
Exactly. Let's magnify it again.
There's something else.
This is a bacterium. The size of a typical bacterium ranges from 1 to 10 micrometers.
So they're just a bit smaller than human cells? Huh? I wonder how big viruses are.
Oh, look! There's a virus in the picture too.
Wait, where?
Right here.
It's so tiny. I thought it was just dirt.
The size of a typical virus ranges from 10 to 100 nanometers, which is about 1/10 to 1,000th the size of bacteria.
So viruses are much smaller than bacteria.
That's right. The size difference between bacteria and viruses is similar to the size difference between a human and a grain of black pepper.
A human and black pepper are vastly different in size.
This difference in size is what leads to the most important difference between bacteria and viruses. It's the difference in their methods of reproduction.
Methods of reproduction?
To put it simply, it's how they leave offspring. Because all living things will eventually reach the end of their lifespan. They need to leave offspring to reproduce as a species. For example, humans leave offspring by having children, and we parrots do so by laying eggs.
That's true.
And as for bacteria and viruses, they reproduce by making copies of themselves.
I've heard of this.
And the method of making copies of themselves, in other words, their method of reproduction, is completely different between bacteria and viruses.
How is it different?
In order to make a copy of themselves, they need a blueprint and various craftsmen to do the work. Specifically, the blueprint refers to the chromosomes, and the craftsmen are enzymes and ribosomes.
I see a blueprint and craftsman. Those are the two things.
Bacteria, viruses, and even human cells all need these two things to multiply. Let's take a look at the specific method of bacterial reproduction. This is a diagram that reproduces bacteria.
You mentioned a blueprint and a carpenter earlier, one of each.
First, the carpenter is created based on the blueprint. Then, the carpenter, called DNA polymerase, copies the blueprint.
Blueprint has doubled.
Finally, a wall is built so that the blueprints can separate from each other.
The bacteria have split into two. Each bacterium has one blueprint and one carpenter. So each is in the same state as the original bacterium.
Exactly. Each starts to function as a separate bacterium.
I see, it indeed feels like it has been copied into two.
That's the method of bacterial reproduction. Next, let's look at the specific method of viral reproduction. I told you that viruses are much smaller than bacteria, didn't I?
You compared it to humans and black pepper.
Exactly. And because of their small size, there's no room for a carpenter inside the virus. There is a blueprint, though.
No room for a carpenter, you say?
For instance, ribosomes, which are the carpenters that make proteins from the blueprint, are 15 to 30 nanometers in size. Viruses are 10 to 100 nanometers, so they physically can't fit in.
Then how do they multiply? Even if you have a blueprint, you can't work without a carpenter, right?
That's right. That's why viruses borrow a carpenter.
From where?
Viruses use human cells.
They can do that.
Let's take a closer look. This is a diagram replicating a human cell.
There are blueprints and carpenters inside human cells too.
And then the virus comes along and injects its blueprint into human cells.
That's quite a feat.
Then, the human cell's carpenter, without realizing that it's the virus's blueprint, ends up copying it.
Don't be fooled. That's a virus?
And when the number increases, it becomes a virus and destroys the human cells and bursts out. By the way, the destroyed human cells often end up dying.
Viruses do terrible things. They take over human cells with the minimum blueprint and deceive the human cell's carpenter to multiply.
Yes, that's what a virus is. Now, considering these differences between bacteria and viruses, let's look at how their treatments differ.
Why do antibiotics work on bacteria but not on viruses?
Antibiotics are medicines that defeat bacteria, but they're not directly killing the bacteria.
So how do they defeat them?
Antibiotics work by stopping the work of bacteria's builders. Once this happens, bacteria can no longer copy their blueprints and they can't multiply.
So, they halt the builders and suppress multiplication. It's an indirect attack, isn't it?
Exactly. For instance, penicillin, which is a well-known antibiotic, halts the work of building the bacteria's wall. In other words, by stopping the enzyme that synthesizes the cell wall, the bacteria can't make a wall and eventually die.
I see.
Moreover, because many bacteria share the process of building their walls, a single antibiotic can work on many types of bacteria.
Antibiotics are powerful, aren't they?
On the other hand, viruses take over human cells and use the builders of those human cells.
That's right. So, antibiotics that stop the bacteria's builders won't work on them.
Exactly. That's why antibiotics don't work on viruses like the novel coronavirus.
I didn't know that.
But if we create a drug to stop the carpenter of human cells, it can harm other normal cells.
If the carpenter of normal human cells is affected, it can produce harmful side effects.
Exactly.
So I have a question. How do antiviral drugs like those for influenza work?
Most antiviral drugs, such as those for influenza, work by stopping the virus's unique blueprint or actions. These are harmless to human cells and only suppress the proliferation of the virus.
That makes sense. So we just need to create drugs that stop these unique viral actions?
Well, it's easier said than done because it varies depending on the type of virus, and we need to research each virus individually, which takes time to develop. It's different from antibiotics, which work on all bacteria. Let's recap what we learned today.
All right.
First, viruses are much smaller than bacteria, and there is no carpenter inside a virus. They proliferate by taking over human cells.
Right. And antibiotics that stop bacterial activity don't work on viruses? We need to research and develop unique antiviral drugs for viruses.
Exactly.
When I thought about the reasons in order, I was able to understand. Thanks for learning with me.
I'm glad to hear that. On this channel, we will learn about everyday discoveries and questions through science. If you find it interesting, check out our other videos.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a high rating. We're also waiting for your comments. See you in another video. Bye-bye.